All right, all right. Welcome back, ladies and gents. Welcome back. We are joined by world-renowned trainer Virgil Hunter and strength and conditioning coach Tony Brady. Gentlemen, thank you for coming into the studio and giving us the opportunity, obviously, to talk a little bit of boxing with you. How are you both?
Doing well.
Very good. Appreciate you guys.
So, Virg, man, I wanted to start this a little different. So I actually did research because I've pretty much covered a lot of your Andre Ward's career professionally, so I felt like we knew each other. So I never did research. I had no clue why you started training and that it was for some sort of probation department or something. Can you give me some more background on that?
Well, I started training kids in boxing when I was working for the probation department, kids who were incarcerated in the units. And I would go to the units and just started just a basic program, hoping that when they got out that they would come to the gym and, pursue an amateur career, pursue a professional career.
So you had the program, or you would have to go to them?
I had the program.
Okay. And then I was reading, and it said that you were linked to certain trainers. So I didn't understand if that meant that you got tutelage from them. But I seen Nazim Richardson. I'll pull up a few others, but I'm sure you can tell me. Can you tell me your I guess, how'd you get some of your boxing knowledge?
Well, I served an apprenticeship like you're supposed to do in the old days at the old Oakland gyms under Jimmy Simmons, Bobby Warren, rest in peace, Tiger Floyd. I served an apprenticeship under them for years to learn the sport, learn the business. Believe it or not, I boxed myself in open, unsanctioned fights, what people don't understand and don't realize, and just respected the game like it was supposed to be, and that's what they insisted upon, and that's the formula that I followed.
Sure. So what can you tell me about your time spent, or anything that you might have conversation that you remember with Nazim Richardson?
Well, I met Nazim on the amateur circuit when we were going to national tournaments, Andre and I, and that's where I met him. Very humble brother, very informative brother, always there for you. We talked other things other than boxing, just got to know him as a good person.
Virg, I do need you to maybe bring the mic closer or speak a little bit more into the mic. They're saying it's a little too low. But yeah, man, those were just some of the things I had no clue about, because obviously, I followed the career of yourself and Ward so closely from a professional boxing and amateur standpoint. I never took the time to find out how you started, but it's very similar to Kevin Cunningham. Did you hear his story or no?
No, I'm not
okay,
aware
so he
of
was,
his story.
I believe he was a former police officer that started a boxing program, and yeah, then he just became a professional trainer like he is now, and kind of similar. Obviously, you weren't an officer, but you were a probation officer, so that's very interesting.
Virgil, I wanted to ask, you said you used to fight unsanctioned fights, and we've actually fought some unsanctioned fights. Was that before you got into the training, or was that during the time that you got into training? Because I'm curious, why boxing? What made you choose boxing out of all the other things you could have chose to help these young men?
Well, my uncles boxed, and they used to work with me when I was a younger kid, so I was always fascinated. Of course, I got infatuated with Cassius Clay during that time. And basketball and baseball was my sport, but I always had boxing in my blood. So after those days kind of faded out, I joined the gym and physically and mentally learned the sport.
So was it a thing that you felt like you had to get in there to be able to teach it, or was it just your ambition and love for the sport?
Well, I was encouraged to get in there, and I had the desire to get in there to see what I was taught. And of course, I was very athletic, so I would say that I was successful in the time that I would sling them. But my mind was more geared towards the training aspect.
Were you considered a heavyweight back then?
No, light heavy. I was much smaller.
Okay. Because you're tall. How tall?
Well, I was 6'3.5" then, 6'4", 180 pounds.
So these days, I feel like you're considered a hired gun. Would you? Or do you look at yourself like that, or do you, or no?
Well, no longer. I have 3 fighters that I got my focus on. 2 from France, 1 from the UK. As far as having a lot of people in hired guns, I'm not in that business no more. I've made my living in boxing. I'm very comfortable. So I decided to take a different route, focus on these 3 gentlemen that I have now, and see how it turns out.
I'm assuming the one from the UK is Joshua Bautsi. You're still with him,
Correct.
and the other 2?
Suleiman Sissoko and Tony Yoka.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. I almost want to jump immediately into the Bakoli fight. Were you there with him?
I didn't train him for that fight. I had Bautsi up in the Bay Area. He made a bad decision to come down to Vegas, which I wasn't willing to follow him down to Vegas. I actually was willing to pay for his camp to come back to the Bay Area. I had 2 heavyweights ready to come into the Bay Area. I was going to actually pay for his camp because his money wasn't right, but he chose to stay down here in the Bay Area. In Vegas. Got his nose broke 3-4 weeks before the fight?
About 5 weeks before the fight.
5 weeks before the fight. Shouldn't have took the fight at all, but you have to ask him about that. But I did go into France 3 days before the fight.
I didn't expect that. I'm going to be real. I did not expect that. Now, these days, I'm a betting man. I know not everybody bets for religious purposes and things like that, but I feel like I'm in this sport. I'm in these gyms because it doesn't stop for me here. Like, me and Danny will go to Top Rank 3 days a week. And
I was at Top Rank for 2 hours this morning watching sparring.
yeah, so like we see things. So, that being said, I thought he was technically the better man. Mechanically, he throws his punches, in my opinion, the way you're supposed to, right?
On top of that,
think that those shots of Bakoli looping around the sides would get around his very defensive high guard. That was
and then on top
I
of
didn't
that,
expect
we
that.
actually saw him sparring in Vegas.
Yes.
So it's like we thought highly of the sparring. We thought
and of his jab. I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
Well, you never know how it is psychologically when you have a broken nose, and he wasn't properly prepared for the fight. So that's not on me. Of course, I took a hit from the French press, which I'm very unhappy about. But then I realized that it's hard for him to get sparring in the Bay Area. He's got to pay for the rooms they stay in. He's got to pay. So I came down to Vegas because I had the opportunity to come down, and I'll probably be coming down much more with my other guys also.
So are you here holding camp with Yoka?
Yes.
Because I was thinking maybe you were also brought in as second eyes for Caleb, or was that just a photo opportunity?
No, Stephen Breadman Edwards is a friend of mine, and so I support him in his coaching endeavors. So I went by the gym a couple times to watch Caleb fight, but box and spar, but I'm not in no way at all affiliated with his progress in camp.
What's your thoughts of Caleb as a fighter?
I think he's a good fighter. I think he's got an upside. I like what Brad is doing with him, and I expect to see a very competitive fight.
Did you expect him to go the distance in the Canelo fight, or did you not have a prediction at the time?
Well, I was pretty open-minded about it. I don't like to make too many predictions before fights. I felt like he had the capabilities of going the distance. But whatever happened, happened.
Yeah, I swore he was going the distance. He did so well, too, up until it was over.
a lot of people had him up.
A lot of people.
A lot of people had him up. Tony, what's up, man? You've been kind of quiet.
I'm just listening to Virg. He's a man of wisdom, so anytime he speaks, I listen.
I actually got a couple questions for you. You're working with Mendoza, right?
Yes.
And how many camps have you had with him now?
I worked with
Mendoza,
him.
For those tuning in, I mean Brian Mendoza.
Yes. I helped out Brian when I came down to help out with Arislandi Lara in a previous camp. Edward Jackson at Houston works with Lara, and he couldn't be here, so me and Jack worked together. And so I came down here to work with Lara, and Brian was sparring with Lara. And so we got a little bit of work in, built a relationship. And then when Brian came to help Mario Barrios prepare for Keith Thurman, he came to the Bay, and then we were able to work during that camp. And then we stayed consistent because I stayed in Vegas after that fight. And we worked all year, and just the objective was to stay ready. I like Brian a lot, and hopefully get him an opportunity. You know, he's in good hands with Luis de Cubas, and he stayed ready. And then when the opportunity came, he took that fight because he knew he was ready against Rosario, and now he's in a really good position. So,
how have you seen the progression with him in the amount of time that you're working with him? Obviously, and I mean more from a explosive standpoint, stamina, recovery, because those are the things that I feel are super important in the ring, is being able to recover and let your hands go.
I mean, that's crucial in boxing. With Brian, you know, he's got a lot of talent, and he came to Vegas just for boxing from New Mexico. And, you know, I think he has a great coach in Coach Salas, and he's been working, and he's one of those guys who's still getting better. You know, it's not as much like the Cubans who have that amateur background where they just pull from that their whole career. He's one of those guys who's still in the gym learning. He spars with Ugas, he spars with Lara, he sparred with everybody who comes through, and he's always available to work, and everybody knows he's one of the hardest working guys out there. And so the thing that I think I bring to the table with him is just the experience, you know, knowing what top fight camps require and what the champions have done to get where they were. So I just, you know, helped him with that, helped him with the psychological aspect, you know, not being a sparring partner, really trying to, you know, focus on his career. And, you know, Brian's a sponge. Brian's a smart kid. He works as hard as anybody I've ever seen. And, you know, I wish him the best.
What's one of the routines on your sprints, when you have your fighters doing sprints?
I mean, we do a variety of different runs. We do distance.
Specifically sprints, obviously.
We do a lot of bursts. We could do 100s, we could do 50s, we do hill sprints, we do short hill sprints, and we do a lot of intervals where you bring it up and then you bring it back down. So,
are you timing the sprints?
Always. But it's more about replicating the output. So I'm more worried about, can you bring your heart rate up, bring it back down, and then how soon can you bring it back up again?
You mentioned the psychological, Virgil. I feel like that's something that you were huge on and have been huge on throughout your career. You've gave us some very memorable speeches. I feel like we could put a 20-minute video of memorable Virgil Hunter speeches, whether it's been in the corner with Andre.
Definitely in the corner.
Whether I remember after the Super Six, I was there when you were speaking on Kovalev's pay at the post-fight press conference. How much of the mental do you think plays an aspect for the fighters in the ring? Because I feel like, you know, that's something that, from my point of view, there's something that you've touched on quite a bit.
Well, I think it's important once you start working with a fighter to try to find a psychological makeup. Every one of them has a certain disposition, and then you try to tap into. So I try my best to tap into it and do the best I can with what I have.
How hard do you feel it is to tap into a fighter that's psychological? You know, more and more these days we see fighters be advocates and speak out on mental health, and we've seen big fights get postponed, big fights get canceled due to fighters dealing with mental health. How, from your experience at least, how hard is it to tap into a fighter's mental?
Well, I think mental health is a real issue with fighters, considering what they have to go through. I think the main important part is to be able to recognize it, to be able to communicate with the fighter, and have him confident in communicating back with you to make sure that he is mentally stable. So I haven't encountered it yet, but you could always say that the borderline for a fighter to go to that side is always there, particularly if he's come off a loss, particularly if he's not happy with the trajectory of his career. these things can come into play just like anybody else in a profession. If you have doubts about your profession, about your ability to climb to the top, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a journalist, whether you're in your profession, if you are not in the position that you're in, you will question yourself. And once you question yourself, then mental instability aspects come into focus.
I want your thoughts, and even Coach Tony as well. Do you believe that in today's day and age, it's a lot harder for a fighter compared, say, when Ward came out of the Olympics in '04, when there wasn't as much social media? Now, where a fighter has to read all these comments and get these messages, and obviously they're getting out to the world a lot more, whether they're the one on the bad end of the viral knockout or the one delivering the viral knockout. Things spread a lot more. Fighters have, I feel social media has played a part, but from your point of view, from both of your points of views, do you guys believe it's hard in this day and age for a fighter because of that?
Well, I think every fighter is subjected to the negativity of social media, whether they're successful or not. You're going to always have that adversarial fan, that fan that just don't like them for whatever reason. And then you're going to have piggyback fans on top of that. So no matter what the success, no matter what you've achieved, it's always going to be doubters. It's always going to be negative comments. And that's something that the fighter has to find his way to put that in the back burner and continue to look forward and continue to look ahead. Social media has been very negative to boxing, I believe. And it affects a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And it can determine the outcome of fights, the outcome of the mental stability of the fighter, or even the camp, so to speak. So I think it's something that you really have to watch out for. I think a fighter, when he's training, should stay off of social media. If he takes a loss, he should stay off of social media. If he gets a win, he should stay off of social media, because eventually the negativity always dies down until the next fight. So I think that that's something that the fighter has to make a determination in himself, that I'm not going to let this affect me, and the best way not to let it affect him is not to allow himself to be subjected to it, not to go searching for the comments, not to go searching for praise or negativity. You know what you did, so you don't need the world to praise you. And you certainly don't need the world's negativity. So I think it's up to the fighter. I think the people who are advising the fighter to stress that as much as possible, particularly if it's been a tough fight where fans say one little shot or knockdown, you exposed, not recognizing the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of the sport. Or if you win close fight that they felt you should have knocked a guy out, just stay off of social media and you'll be fine.
Coach? I think it's just another challenge for fighters these days. It's a little bit harder to stay in the bubble, to stay insulated from the outside world when you're in training camp. But it's a game of toughness anyway. It's a game of mental toughness. I think I see it more in other sports, honestly, where they're more exposed to the social media and it affects them more. You see that in like basketball and football, and you see it a little bit more there, I think. But in boxing, if you can't handle it, then it's gonna be hard, to overcome and become a champion.
Well, the difference in other sports is they're team sports, other than tennis or something like that. So there are supporting factors in other sports, particularly that involve team sports. So you're able to handle it a little bit better because you got teammates to rely on, and everybody knows their part. And so if this guy gets by me, I'm supposed to have backup in the paint, things like that. These things happen. So it's easier to not get mentally diminished in those arenas.
And I think so. I think in the aspect too, there's a lot less privacy in boxing, right? Like you're not having any NFL or NBA players like leaking their practice or their scrimmage tapes or things like that. Versus sparring gets out, and if not, there's always gonna be a picture because I just got rounds in with the champ. Now I'm going to upload it, and now I'm going to know how many rounds he got in with who, versus back in the day, you might not even know who's sparring who in camp. So, definitely interesting, I feel like.
Virg, I wanted to ask, there's a lot of mention that if Bivol versus Better Beef doesn't happen, Bautsi is next. Do you feel he's ready for that title shot versus Dimitri Bivol?
Right
Ready next.
Right now, I think that fight is a couple fights away. I'm not at liberty to discuss Boatsi's business plans, but he is going through some business transitions and transactions. So I think that'll be revealed in the next month or so. Then we'll make a determination from there. But he's most definitely a couple of fights away from a title shot. And I feel his style will give Bivol trouble because he won't back off of Bivol. Whereas Ramirez backed off of him and showed respect. Bautsi won't do that. And he's got lay you down, lay you out power. So he's always going to be in any fight he's in.
Do you have say in opponent selection, or do you just give your advice?
I have say in the selection.
Do you think he's ready for a former world champion then?
Yeah. Joe Smith, somebody like that, sure. Those are definitely on my radar.
Is the domestic fight between him and Yarde still a possibility? Obviously, Yarde has moved on to do things, but he hasn't been able to capture that world title. Do you think that's still there, or that's something to revisit in the...
Well, I think that would be something in the future, considering that Yarde took this loss and how he lost and things like that. I think Joshua at this time has to move ahead, move forward. And then if he accomplishes his dreams and goals, then Yarde is definitely a consideration. He's a hell of a fighter. He's a game fighter. And it's a big fight in the UK. So I think the collision course is there, but not at this time.
Virgil, I wanted to ask, obviously, still in the game, but looking back after all the years, all the camps, and all the fights, what would you say is the most important thing you've ever told a fighter? Whether it was one single fighter or something you've told to numerous fighters, what would you say is the most important thing you've said to a fighter?
Don't leave yourself in a position that you'll look back and have to regret, particularly if you got world-class skills, if you got world championship skills. Don't cut any corners. Don't do anything negative in your career. Because this is a sport, whether you win a belt or not, you can make money. And you want to make sure that you max out. Don't stay in too long. Don't get broke where you have to fight for money because you don't have skills in any other profession. And get out with your faculties. That's what I stress.
Do you think, not that he should have, but do you think that Ward still had those 3 fights in him?
Well, it's interesting you said that because when he spoke to me about retirement, I was always for it from the time he was 9 years old. I stressed that once you make the money, save your money, make sure everything is paid off, make sure you have a future ahead of you. And he had this future in broadcasting ahead of him, so it was no need for him to fight. But considering the layoff that he had in the last Kovalev fight, I felt that he was getting in his groove and that he had 3 or 4 great fights in him.
Now, we hear the rumor plan for him and everything, given that obviously he would have been moving up in weight. To you, that's no... Knowing that, you still think he could have competed at that level?
It depended who the fighter was. One thing that I can say that in sparring, Andre was hell on heavyweights, just hell on them. And some real good heavyweights, top amateur heavyweights and things like that. So it would have had to been a certain style.
I mean,
if I remember correctly,
let's just come out and say it. He was talking about Joshua. In retrospect, watching Joshua lose to Andy and obviously twice to Usyk, do you believe there was a world where Ward could have done it?
I think that states my case right there. I think it states my case right there.
I mean, Andy was a declarated heavyweight amateur, so he's probably not like your body friendly heavyweight, but he was always a heavyweight. And Usyk,
you just said Ward was messing the heavyweights up in sparring, so Virgil felt that his guy could.
I doubt
I'm just
it.
saying
I
the two guys that beat him, it's not like they slouch. It's like obviously Usyk is an undisputed champ at cruiserweight, moving up to become unified, and Andy.
Tony, I mean, you being strength and conditioning coach, being with Dre for so many years, What is your thoughts and how do you attack that? All right, I got my guy. He just moved up to 75. He's had a few fights at 75. Now cruiser, because I think Tony Bellew was the champ at the time, and that was part of the rumor plan. Now Joshua, how do you go about that? And do you believe that Ward could have pulled it off?
I mean, if he moved up and he put a little bit of size on to be able to have the durability, I don't see why not, because he's going to have a skill, speed advantage. It's just a matter of, can he withstand, all the sparring and training camp and then, be able to take the shot. So it's just a matter of building up to it. I don't see why not, though.
Let me ask you both this then. That being said, how much time would you have wanted for a move from light heavyweight to cruiser?
Yeah, how many months to make him a real heavyweight?
And then from cruiser, he fights at cruiser, then how many months to prepare him for a heavyweight fight?
I would say a year. The thing is
Back
that,
then, though.
The thing is that Andre knows his range. And because he knows his range with heavyweights, he's able to land flush, crisp punches that accumulates, almost like Spinks against Cooney. He's able to get inside that zone where they're limited and go to work on them. He has the physical strength to last the distance, and he has the defensive wherewithal not to give you more than one punch at a time. If you look at the first Kovalev fight, we couldn't run for that fight. His knee was bothering him. He couldn't run. So we had to do bike and things like that. So when it was obvious that Kovalev had the boxing advantage, we went to something that we knew he wasn't accustomed to, a dog fight. And I believe most Eastern European fighters are not accustomed to dog fights. They're very technically sound. They come from good boxing schools. But if you force them into a dog fight, Teofil against Lomachenko, they fall apart. So the second fight, when he was able to run and things, I predicted a knockout. Nobody ever talks about that. But I told him, I said, in order to get this knockout, we're going to have to give up a punch. And we're going to give him the jab because he flicks it. But when he gets tired from you dogging him on the inside, he's going to start dragging it, and you'll be able to follow it back. Nobody can tell me in that second fight one time where Kovalev landed a right hand and everybody went, ooh. You can't think of one time in that fight where he landed a big right hand. It wasn't there. We took it from him, and we stopped him. So that's the intelligence and the physical strength that he has. That by getting inside, I felt like when you see Anthony fight today, Joshua, with everything, that he would be able to slip inside of him and make him bring his hands in. He's not effective there. He won't be able to catch him coming in and hit him with short, crisp combinations. And because of his speed, he'd be able to hit him flush. And I don't care if you do have a 30-pound weight advantage. You get hit on the chin flush. You could look away and a baby can hit you and you go, wow, right? And he's hitting you with stuff you don't see. I felt that he'd have been competitive in the fight. Not saying how it would turn out, but I felt he'd have been competitive.
I gotta ask, there's been so much chatter, people dying for him to come back, and specifically Canelo, being as
especially after that video of him and Shakur shadow boxing with each other. There was a lot of talk of
I think even before that, I think if ever since Canelo's been in and around that weight, they've mythically pit the two. But if ever a time to come back, guys, for a shot at Canelo and undisputed, does that make sense? Or once you ride off, you stay in the sunset?
Well, can he make 68?
Can he make 68?
That fight's not going to happen. He's secure in his future. He's happy. He does stay in tip-top condition, which I encourage. It's just a fight that you won't see. But there was a time that he could have challenged Canelo at 68 when Canelo was fighting at 160. That fight was possible, just like the Golovkin fight, but they didn't happen. So
you just said it, they didn't happen. What's the one fight out of all these names and possibilities we just mentioned that you wish he
would have manifested?
The Golovkin fight.
Me too. He refused to move up for you guys. That was the bottom of it.
Well, he said he would move up.
But not for you guys. He
But
would move
not
up for
us.
Chavez.
He would move up for Chavez. He would move up for Froch.
Oh, yes. Froch.
But he wouldn't move up for us. So a lot of excuses came with it, but it is what it is.
What's the real story with the Froch situation? Why did the rematch never happen? Or was it a fighter that he wanted over there? Or did Ward not want to go over there? What's the case with that?
Froch didn't want to fight because he realized he got beat with one hand. Dre had a broken hand in that fight, in his right hand. And he realized that if I took this much punishment with a broken hand, and what could happen? He didn't want to fight. The fight frustrated him. He couldn't get off. He couldn't fight his fight, and he knew it wouldn't be any different the next time. So he didn't want to fight. It was offered to him many times. It was always an excuse.
Speaking of Froch, I just gotta ask. We were actually, he's been in the headlines recently. I'm not sure if you saw.
John with
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul.
Yes. So
Which one is Jake Paul? Is he the one fighting Tommy?
Yes.
Fury?
Yes.
I think that's a dangerous fight for Froch.
Oh!
Considering the time that he's been off.
9 years
But
he's
Coach,
been out.
he's only 45.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm going to pull up.
Have you seen him recently?
I cannot
or a
believe-
picture of him recently?
No.
I got 1 year to look as good as he looked because I'm 44 and I'm not. He is cut up. I mean, he's doing well.
The type of style that he fights and the way he has to win is not good for him against Jake Paul. He will get hit with a big punch. Jake Paul is pretty serious about his sport, and I watch him in training. He's getting more and more technically sound. He's going to be the bigger fighter, and Froch is going to stand there. So it doesn't matter how you look. You hear fighters all the time after they blow their youth, and then they come back at 35 and 36, and they say, I'm in the best condition I've ever been in. No, you're in the best condition a 36-year-old could get in. You're not in the best condition that a 22-year-old who's trained the same and everything's going to get in. So you might, of course, you could look good with your body from weightlifting, exercise, aerobics, and things like that. But you haven't been in the boxing gym, which calls for reflexes and reactions and things like that. So, no good.
I'm with you, Coach. I'm with you.
I'm just saying his run. It's hard to not look past that resume. Like, I mean, from John Pascal, the only thing you can find to consider, and I wouldn't call Yusef Mack a soft touch. Like I've been saying that, like Froch had a serious run. That was like a 15-fight run of nothing but world-class names. And he knows how to deliver that right hand. If the only thing he could do is deliver that right hand, he gonna land it. He landed it on Jermaine Taylor. You know, I don't know.
That was Jermaine Taylor's fault.
Yeah, but
It had more to do with Jermaine's demise and mental mindset. I talked to Emmanuel Stewart about Jermaine Taylor, and he was not a student of the sport. He was stubborn in a lot of ways, and he just relied on his accomplishments with B-Hop to think that was going to take him the rest of the way. He didn't perfect his art craft at all.
Did you ever talk to Emmanuel about Tony Harrison?
No.
What's your thoughts on Harrison? He's got a tough assignment. He's got to fly all the way to Australia, fight a son of a legend in Tim Tszyu. Can he do it?
I thought that Tszyu was fighting Charlo.
Charlo got injured, and somehow Tszyu offered Harrison that shot. I think it's a dangerous fight.
Considering how, who's the guy that knocked Tszyu down?
Terrell Gachet.
If Tszyu displays the same technique that he displayed against Harrison, is very slick and very clever. If he doesn't kill himself making a weight where he sort of gets tired late in the fight, I give him a chance. It's all how he trains.
He only 6 pounds off.
So that's what you think it is. You think he's killing himself, and that's why he gets tired. See,
I don't know.
I was going to ask you both, is it chin or is it stamina?
I don't know if he doesn't make the weight correctly or whatever, but in his fights, even before Charlo, although in the first Charlo fight, he showed good stamina, and the second one he did too.
Up until that 6th round.
Yeah, but he was rumbling in that fight. How long did the second one go?
11.
11 rounds. He was rumbling in that fight. He had a case that he was winning that fight until Charlo caught him. So he had a big case. He was working to the body. He was busy. So his conditioning was apparently there. I say it depends on the conditioning. Zoo has not fought anybody like like Harrison. And if Harrison can be in condition and go last the fight, it'll be an interesting fight. I'm not taking away nothing from Zoo or Harrison.
Tony, from the outside looking in, is it because you're a strength coach, and I've been asking everybody, even his own trainer, LJ Harrison, like, is it the chin or is it stamina? Because I was there in Tampa for the Willie Nelson fight. He was doing great, and every fight he loses, he's doing great, and then he either gets stopped or
No, he's only been stopped.
he gets stopped.
Well, when you see the sawdust, the mill is not far away. So you could just liken it to Rolly getting knocked out in the gym. When you see the sawdust, that's the first big knockout you take. The mill is not far away, unless you have a lot of time in between to recover.
Which that he has.
Who?
Tony's. There's been years in between. You got to go.
No, because he switched to Rolly for a quick second.
Oh no, hell no! They announced the title fight the day after that video dropped of him being knocked down in sparring. So,
But Tony, you didn't get to answer.
I mean, it's hard to speculate without knowing everything he's doing. I don't know. What he's doing for his chin, what he's doing for his conditioning, how his weight cut is. There's so many factors. Without knowing the behind the scenes on that,
Did you see
couldn't
his last
speculate.
fight with Sergio Garcia?
I did not.
Did you, Coach?
No.
yeah,
He fought so well. He fought so well. A lot of pivots. It reminded me of like Pitbull Cruz and Gervonta Tank Davis, except obviously, Tony used more jabs. He fought very well, but he's going to need a performance like that type of stamina. Hopefully. Maybe we're overhyping Zoo, right? I don't know.
I love Tony's style, though.
I do too.
I personally think that, and I've been in the gym with both guys in the last 6 months. So, yeah, I personally feel that Tony edges it out. Too much experience and too much class. I just feel like he's a level above Tim right now.
I just think you have to do Devin Haney in a foreign country. You have to consistently outwork and outland your man.
Make
Or-
it clear. You saying
Exactly.
Make it clear.
You ain't making it clear. They could take it from you. But speaking of Devin Haney, you're from Oakland. He's obviously from Oakland. What's your thoughts on Devin Haney, the undisputed champ?
I think he's doing a heck of a job in his career. I think he's getting to the point in his abilities that he's ready for anybody. He's had some good confidence fights.
He's been in your gym, right? Somebody that you've worked with before.
Yeah, he's come to my gym, and he's big for the weight. I think his power, because of you, he's grown into his power, and he's definitely hitting hard enough to make you respect him. And with this world-class jab, he's going to be hard for anybody to deal with.
So when he visited you, did he work with Amir Khan and Bertha? Or were they too big?
No, he handled Khan. He handled Khan. Khan was definitely on the downside. He handled Khan.
What about with Bertha? A little bit bigger.
He never sparred with Berto, I don't think.
Mayfield?
No, he never sparred with Kareem. That would have been a dangerous sparring session there because Kareem is strong, can punch.
Speaking of Kareem, has he called you?
He called me last week.
Oh, my God. Did he really get offered the fight?
I don't know anything about a fight. He didn't mention a fight.
I heard rumors he was getting offered the Broner fight. Soon as Michael Williams Jr. jaw got broke, I heard Kareem got offered the fight. So I'm like, damn, did he call you?
Tony heard that too. That's why he's
No,
smiling.
That's news to me right there.
No, I haven't. He actually called me, texted me for. I got it right here in my phone.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. If it would have been boxing Broner related, then all right. But nah, I was shooting in the dark
Kareem
there.
hasn't fought in several years.
I mean, they was looking for a tune-up for Broner. He ain't fought in several years. He trying to get back.
Does he have anything scheduled yet?
Well,
He
had
has.
that.
He has Saturday.
But they haven't resolved that for
Well, no,
Three-
it got postponed to
Three
April now.
opponents.
April.
Three
Yeah.
opponents pulled out. That's like
In
almost
30
unheard
days,
of.
3 opponents in 30 days. They had the original opponent was
Hank Lund. No, the original was Ivan Redkach.
Red Cat.
And his promoter stopped that fight, Star Boxing, Joe DeGuardia. Then the second opponent was
Seven-
Hank Lundy.
Yeah, Hank.
And then Hank Lundy, his promoter stopped that
No.
fight because he had a fight contract to fight another fighter. So obviously he owed that fight to Tito Mercado. So they legally kept him out of the Broner fight. So then Michael Williams Jr. stepped in, and according to the father, Roy Jones put him in too tough a sparring, and he got his jaw broke. A week out. Or at least 2 weeks out.
He been real vocal on Roy too. Let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
been very vocal. But
So, Coach, since we're talking Haney, what do you think of the Loma fight? Can he get I don't want to even say stoppage. Haney's definitely a decision fighter, right? Or you think Loma's ready to be stopped?
I think if any time to get Loma is this time right now, and I think Devin has the tools to do it, to cause him a lot of difficulty, and the timing is perfect for Devin to win that fight pretty convincingly, I would say.
But is convincingly by stoppage in your opinion, or you see decision?
If he stopped him, I wouldn't be surprised, but I would lean more towards a decision.
Coach, I have to ask, when you watch his fights, and if you watch any training footage that's out there, do you see anything that you guys worked on while he was in your gym, or any advice that you gave him? Do you see anything that you specifically worked on with him?
Well, he wasn't in long enough for me to really just lock in on anything specific. You know, I would just pat him and things like that. And usually when he came for sparring sessions and stuff like that. So a couple times I worked with him with the body shield, and just basically patted him. But knowing that different guys worked with him and things like that, I didn't want to confuse the situation because he's here for a minute and then he's gone. So it's not good to just try to implement something that he should be doing, and he's only there for a few days and he's gone. So
The only reason I ask is because we've had a conversation with his dad, Bill Haney, where, he says how when Devin was on the come up, Bill received a lot of criticism for having him work with so many different trainers and having them, people would say like, oh, he's going to get confused and this and that. But the reason I asked is because he actually told us something that they've added to their tool bag that they learned from you. So that's why I asked if you saw anything that
Wasn't it specifically the guard? Transitioning though.
it was the prevent defense.
the prevent defense.
The prevent defense.
Can you explain
When
that?
switching guards, right?
It's after you punch, you take a half step back with the straight arm to prevent anything from
Okay.
using your lead hand.
Yeah, I knew it was something with the
Yeah.
guard. But I guess that's not considered guard. Definitely the lead hand. And he does do that a lot.
Your distance and range more so, I would say, right?
Well, it makes the incoming fighter stop when it's in his face because he doesn't know if something's coming behind it. So, and then you could disrupt his lead hand too also.
Could you bring the mic a bit closer to you? Coach?
Yeah.
You could just move it to you. But perfect. I do think we have some questions.
David Maldonado, New York City says, "What's up, Coach? Who wins, Prime Miguel Cotto versus Prime Earl Spence?"
That's a good fight. I would have to say, based on the styles, I'd have to go with Errol.
We got Ruin of 504 says, "Could you have really helped AJ beat Usyk?"
I believe so. At the time that he and I talked, I was stressing certain type of punches that he had used in the fight and that he needed the whole camp to work on cutting the ring because he never cut the ring. And I was trying to explain to him that when Usyk went to his right, he never punched, but he always comes back to his left and he punches. So you can't go to your left with Usyk. You have to go and make him go to his right, and keep him at. You have to make him stay that way. So that was the plan that I would have put together for that. And I think that the idea is just hitting him anywhere, and also to have a fast lightweight in camp because when you throw it to Anthony, he pulls back from punches, so the other ones get through. To be able to keep his guards up and have fast, light heavyweight, throw punches at him and put 20-ounce gloves on him and make him parry those punches. And when he gets better with that, put 16s on him, make him parry those punches. When he gets better at that, put 10-ounce gloves on him where he fights in and have him parry. So he's used to staying there and keeping his hands close to the target. That's what I was going to work on if we just remain together.
How important was relocating camp from the UK to America, or was that not a thing for you? Did that matter? Could you have gotten the same results in the United Kingdom like you could have gotten them in the Bay Area?
I wasn't willing to go to the UK.
Okay.
Because I felt that at my place it would be the best place that I could offer him the best tutelage.
And a lot of people like to believe that he was in control of his sparring. Do you feel like that's an issue? Did he need tougher sparring?
I don't know anything about the camp or who he had in the spar or how he dictated how the camp was going to go. I have no idea how it went.
What's your thoughts, though, on sparring in general? Obviously, now having the opportunity to live on the West Coast and, you know, seeing so many gyms on the East. Man, they fighting out here in Las Vegas. This is like a real fight. It's not sparring. I'm used to the East Coast with people working with you, you know, you're a trainer on the outside, like, hey, keep it, you know, if you get hit with a right hand and you wobbling, someone stops that shit. Like out here, they, you know, you might get dropped. So how did you hold your camps, and how aggressive, or I guess how much did you have your guys going in sparring?
Well, if it's a mismatch, of course, it has to be controlled, but I always try to look for bring guys in that had great skills to spar. And if they were a notch or so below, I would keep them fresh, where I would bring one guy in one round, take him out, and bring the other guy in, so the sparring partners always stayed fresh. So that kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. But I definitely believe in competitive sparring. That's how the fight is going to be. If you get into the mindset of holding back, it could carry over into your real fight, holding back. It's hard to find the right sparring partners for the opponents that you're going to fight. That's the main thing. You can't duplicate your opponent. So the best thing is to really go out and spar. And you got big gloves on, you got headgear on, go out and spar and get the conditioning so you can adapt and adjust to any situation in the ring with your live opponent that night of the fight.
What's your thoughts on Angel Garcia? He's obviously quoted by us because we did the interview where he says that, you know, he doesn't like to bring in hard sparring because fighters are trying to make a name off the champ. Obviously, the champ being whatever fighter the coach is training. Have you been in those situations where someone is, you know, trying to make a name for themselves in that sparring session?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know about his philosophy, but everything, but I used to put a bounty on Andre's head. Whoever knocked him down get $1,000. So that was incentive enough.
How many thousands you pay?
Never. Never.
Now, did you shake people's hands? And the only reason I asked is because that video that you've seen or heard of with Rolly getting knocked down, there's a trainer that obviously is jumping up and down in Otis Pemberton, and we had him in studio because it didn't look right, but there was a bet behind that. So his excitement was because he had a bet on that sparring with another trainer. And the reason I asked, when you were offering this $1,000, how serious were you with that $1,000? Because he ain't get paid because allegedly they didn't shake on the bet.
Well, I didn't know nothing about it. I just heard about the sparring session. I didn't see the footage or anything like that.
Okay.
It didn't interest me. I just felt bad for Rolly, you know, that happened. It's embarrassing and things like that. And it's not good to have people in there taping sparring sessions and then going online. That's another thing that could cause mental depression right there. That's something that could affect the fighter. People don't realize just to get clout. So, you know, shame on the person that put that out on the internet. It wasn't right. It was disrespectful. I'm sure you was told in the gym that it was no filming the sparring or anything like that. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I don't know anything about the bet.
No, but I'm saying in terms of you and the sparring partners, like how serious is that $1,000? Because again, you know,
I would have paid it.
Okay,
sure, I would have paid it. I'm a man of my word. I would have paid it.
That's interesting. I think I heard that only one other time. Someone
I think with Freddie Roach and
specifically
and Pacquiao.
$1,000,
No,
right?
I think it was more, but regardless of how much it was, I know it was over 1,000, at least 1,000 that he would pay for a knockdown for Pacquiao in camp.
I have James Benitez that says, what are your thoughts on today's topic? What do you think of Pacquiao versus Conor Ben? Yeah, so there are heavy rumors. Obviously, Sean Gibbons, who manages Pacquiao, was saying that they wouldn't consider Conor Ben if he couldn't get cleared by cleared the fight. But now he is, and there's a possibility. There was also some Middle Eastern interest in this fight.
Conor Ben has been cleared to fight.
Yes.
By the WBC, yes, as of today.
Not good. Not good. But if you're talking about the Pacquiao of today, I don't think it's a fight that he should take. He don't have to take it. If you're talking about a prime Pacquiao, I would go with Pacquiao.
But for Conor, do you think he should take it?
Of course he's going to take it if it's available. It's another name to hype his name up and to, further his career along, to have that kind of name on his resume. So I'm sure he would take it.
And you said it's not good, so I'm assuming you're not happy with the results. What do you think needs to be done in boxing to, I guess, make it a cleaner sport?
Well, if you're dirty, you're dirty. And if you can't prove your point, then there's no sense in the politics coming into the situation to do favors for certain people to clear the fight and clear the name. It's just not a good look on the sport. If you can't prove your point how you got contaminated, which he hasn't. He hasn't produced the eggs or anything else like that to prove his point, anything like that. It's just another favor that's being done, and it just, to me, it shows the corruption that exists in boxing. I hate to say it. I respect the sport. I respect the governing bodies, but there's always an element of corruption there and favors done, and it doesn't do any of the fighters that are ranked in those governing bodies any favors. It just shows favoritism, and it gives an open door for you to cheat, because you can always point to, well, you let him off, well, you let him off, well, you let him off. It's always going to be an open door to cheat. And until somebody gets killed again or something like that, and then they'll go into the little bag of, we got to get more stringent, we got to get more tested. It's going to happen.
I have Brandon in Houston that says, thanks for taking the time to come on, Virgil. Andre Ward was really good at effectively clinching to neutralize his opponent's offense. Did he come to you with that skill, or did you drill that into him? Also, what do you say to the fan who criticizes clinching by labeling a fighter a hugger?
Number one, Andre started boxing with me when he was 9. He didn't know a left hook from a fish hook. So I don't call it clinching. I call it grappling. To wear a fighter down, it's all part of the sport. To grapple, a lot of people say he's hugging and clinching and everything, but you got the referee right there making the determination if it was a hold or not. You can always see the referee never really called holding on Andre, never called hugging on him. He was always grappling, moving his arms and jerking your arms and moving your arms over. That's what I taught him, to wear the other fighter down. So, and then there comes a time that you're going to have to be there. You're going to have to be able to fight pretty, and you're going to have to be able to fight ugly. So when he came out of the amateurs, he had a pretty style. I said, the only style that could beat your style is a buzzsaw. So now we have to go to the inside and learn how to work on the inside. So every day I put the body shield on him and have him working on the inside. So when those days came, he was ready for it. So a lot of people, they like to see a space between the two fighters, them chucking punches and things like that. But there's an art to the sport. And I don't call it clinching or holding, I call it grappling.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fine line. You know, some people don't like grappling or clinching. What did you ever watch Amir Khan versus Lamont Peterson?
Yeah, I saw that fight.
What was your thoughts on that? And no, that's not grappling, but, you know, it's up to the referee's discretion.
I thought it was a fair fight.
So you didn't mind the shoving from Khan?
Well, I mean, he shoved to get him back to clear space, and things like that. And it depends on the referee. Anything goes if the referee lets it go. So you have to test the referee's resolve to see where he's at. He's going to give you 2 or 3 warnings of what he's going to allow. It's a fight. So if I'm able to push you off, look at George Foreman, how many times he pushed off Joe Frazier and shoved him here and shoved him there. Not one call was made because it was the referee's discretion in the ring. So the referee is looking for little things to harp on and maybe to appease the corner. Maybe it was something in the dressing room that was told and he enforced it. Then it becomes an issue. It becomes an issue. Sometimes you guys are straight arm you. It's not an issue. And another referee, it's an issue. Sometimes you get hit low. And the referee just give you a warning the whole fight. Or another referee after the second time will take a point from you. So you have to understand the competence and the resolve of the referee in the ring. Know what you can do and know what you can't do. So
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
So if I could get away with pushing you off and there's no call, it's all fair in war.
Do you think that more retired fighters should become referees? Would that help in judging? Also, should they become officials? Like, obviously Ward has a better career as a broadcaster, but if you weren't doing that, should Ward be a referee or a judge? Because they have a better understanding. They've been in the ring. They know what they're looking at. I'm going to the conventions versus some. Obviously you and myself are old, but some of these dudes are very old. Physically, they can't even come between 2 heavyweights. Like
right now, if I go on BoxRec and pull up Floyd Mayweather's professional debut, the referee and the 3 judges are still, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, yo, my mother ain't the same since '96. So, she ain't that sharp. So I don't know. Do you think that it would help to get some of these retired fighters, just people involved in the sport that have fought to some extent, more of these positions, because it's people from the outside looking in that ain't never been in the ring?
Well, I don't believe you guys are asking me this question. It all boils down to favoritism of the promoter, who he wants to judge the fight and things like that. The most powerful promoter has the most say-so who's going to judge the fight and who's going to referee the fight. Usually the champion can pick the referee. The challenger has no say-so. The champion is going to be able to pick 2 judges out of the 3, and that 3 is the one coming from the challenger's hometown or home country, things like that. The other 2 referees are at the discretion of the promoter. You hear things that go on behind the scenes and everything like that. It's a no-brainer. It's favoritism in it to give me the best advantage and the best chance to win the fight. We've seen, how many decisions have we seen that should have went the other way? So
too many.
It's not a big mystery of what goes on in the sport.
But that's what I'm saying. Those officials, they're easy to coerce. Like a Ward or even a chop caller, because obviously Ward is the highest level. I can't see him retiring and being a ref unless that's something he wants to do on the weekends, right? But Chop has been in the ring for years. Is he gonna allow something that he's really not seeing to be written on his scorecard because of a promoter being in that situation as a fighter?
I think the consideration of fighters judging and refereeing, you have a strong point. But at the same time, former fighters have favorite fighters too. And they could be put in a position where they only see what the fighter they favor is doing and not really looking at the other fighter. That possibility exists also. I think one good thing is that you should get people who have not been in the sport and train them for several months, bring them up through the amateurs and things like that, and allow them to referee. Again, I agree with younger minds. But as long as I got you in my pocket, you're going to referee. Unless it's just something outrageous like Miss Bird did.
With the Floyd fight.
Well, we haven't seen her since.
Oh, no, we seen her after. Which fight you talking about?
Adelaide Bird.
Which fight, though? Because she's the same one with the draw card for Floyd and Canelo.
Right, I think that one, and it was something else. But, again, we don't know how she saw the fight or whatever. It's obvious Floyd won the fight. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. There's been many after her and many before her that didn't suffer the consequences that she suffered.
But
So,
what consequences? She's still judging to this day.
as you judge any championship fights,
She judging she judging guys that it may not be on the title, but guys that's being discussed for title opportunities, guys that's still in the rankings, guys that have a career on the line.
well, I mean, all you got to do is not let her judge the championship fights, whereas it's unfair that other judges have made the same calls and they still judge a championship fight. So I feel like more or less she made a mistake, but she's the scapegoat in the whole situation because it was so obvious, you know, at a fight of that level and that magnitude that put the spotlight on her. But she's working. As you say, I didn't know she was working, but she's still working. So there's obviously some people in positions to give her the work, give her the payday, and rightfully so if you're going to have other judges making calls that it was a fight not too long ago. I saw that. Should have went one way.
So her last title fight in this country was Canelo Golovkin, and she had it 10-2 for Canelo.
Which one? Is that
was the
one
fight.
or two?
The first one.
That was the fight right there.
That's the last. She did another title fight outside of this country, but in this country, that was the last one.
So again, it goes down to favoritism of the governing bodies and things like that, and the promoters and who they want, and that's just the sport of boxing.
It's also subjective. Like I like to use the reference of Harold Letterman. You know, I watched years of HBO, and Harold, if you had a Margarito style, you were winning the fight. Doesn't matter who you are. That's what he liked. Okay, Jim, he's coming forward. He's making the fight. So he's scoring it for that guy. He's not scoring it for the, you know, slick, elusive boxer. So hypothetically, like Rashidi Ellis versus Villa, he would have had Villa up on the card because Villa's coming forward every single round, whereas I'm seeing Rashidi slip, jab, jab, right hand, pivot. I like that. So I score for the boxer. So scoring is very subjective. I think we need guidelines on how you score a fight. Like one judge can't only like come forward styles, not like a back foot fighter. It's so many different things. It sucks. But I did hear you say it's promoters, it's political. Joe Cortez has obviously gone away from something that he had started. It was called the Cortez 2020 system, where he felt if we can put the officials on tennis-style referee seating, which I know takes a lot of space from ringside. So that's another conversation. But what do you think of elevated judges looking down into the ring? Would that help the scorecards?
I think it would, because one judge in one corner, if a fighter's back is to that judge and he's just throwing punches, you can't see the counter punches coming back with the fighter up against the ropes. So quite naturally, you're going to favor the fighter with his back to you, particularly if he's letting his hands go, but you're not seeing other fighters slip and countering things like that, whereas the other one over there has an advantage. The one on this side has an advantage. The one right below should have an advantage. But if you're on top of the ring, you're able to see the action wherever it takes place. So I think that would be a good idea.
So obviously that takes a lot of space. Those tennis judges' chairs look huge.
Well, I mean, you only have to be eye level to the top rope.
So you're saying like 4 feet in the air?
Yeah, just eye level to the top rope where you can see everything and not below where you're looking up. You don't know if the ring lights are blinding you. You don't know what is the crowd reaction. If it's a rumble going on, the guy against the ropes is getting the better of it, but you assume they're cheering for the guy that's got his back to you.
So
That's
my
why
idea is
No, and I agree specifically with that, because I'm specifically at Top Rank every day. So when I'm on the ground, standing up, looking up into the ring at the sparring, my eyes start to hurt from the light. So I could only imagine a 80-year-old judge or 75-year-old judge ringside looking into those bright show lights.
Yeah, no, and they bring out extra lights for that.
And they've had dinner, they've had drinks and things of that nature. You hope they didn't, but you know the possibility is there. And they've been on that routine so long that it becomes second nature to it, that it's easy to cut corners. Oh, I could do this. You know, I can have a couple of drinks and do this. Not saying anybody's doing it, but all those possibilities are there. So, again, boxing needs to be addressed, I believe, and cleaned from the bottom up. And some promoters have more power than the other ones. And as long as the power is there, the influence is going to be there. That's just the world, the way it is.
I think that is I got Jazz that says, do you think Joshua Bautsi got tired and lost some explosiveness in the later part of the fight versus Craig Richards?
You know, I have some thoughts about that fight. That I'll keep to myself concerning Richardson. But the bottom line is that Bautsi came off a good fight with Balakniks and went right into that fight, and he won. So the main thing is that he won, and we've talked about his stamina in the last 2 rounds, although I thought he won the 12th. But he worked hard in that fight. And what I told him was when he had Richardson hurt 3 times, he went nuts. He's just going crazy trying to put him out, where I told him you have to be more technical. All you need to do is get one shot, solid shot in within 5 seconds after you hurt him. But you winging, and Richardson is rolling and rolling, and you shoot you wide, and now you let him come back. So that was a matter of experience, the experience that he's gaining over there. When he hurt a guy, he wants to going crazy, and within 25 seconds, you're depleted. So that had a lot to do with the fight. I felt that the first time he hurt Richardson, if he'd have been more technical and set up another shot, he could have got him out of there. So he understands that now.
I got Lids Low in Decatur, Georgia that says, Coach, is there anybody you wanted to train but didn't get a chance to?
I can't think of anybody offhand. There's so many great fighters out there. I'll tell you this much. My biggest disappointment was Amir Khan. Even though he had been in situations where he got stopped a couple of times, I knew how to protect his chin. He had such ability that if he would have acquired an IQ and dedicated himself to the sport, that I believe he would have been a Hall of Famer. And also, I regret the Canelo fight. It was a fight I didn't want him to take. Begged his dad not to make the fight, begged him that it would ruin him, and it did. So he had something that other fighters just didn't have. The times he got caught was just mental mistakes. And I felt that the groove that we were in from the Devin Alexander fight, from the, what was the fight before Devin? Collazo fight, fighting 2 southpaws, crisp and precise as he was, that he was ready to make another run at the title. But, of course, the Canelo fight came in. We had a good plan. He was winning the fight till he got caught. So that's my biggest disappointment. But I can't think of any other fighter that
Man, you hearing you say that, and you know, and just hearing you believe in his skills so much, I'm almost like forced to ask you: do you think a prime Amir Khan would have really beat Floyd? Because he seemed to believe that. He seemed to believe that, and you know, there's an argument that Floyd avoided that fight. Like Floyd himself, when social media first started, he made a poll, and Khan actually won, and he chose to fight someone else and not the person that won the poll. And Khan always mentioned his speed would be the issue for Floyd. Obviously, you know, in retrospect, Floyd's been perfect and Khan has been not, but you trained him. Do you think, I don't know, do you think the unthinkable?
I think Floyd would have had to hurt him, maybe even clip him. I think that Khan's style, when Floyd went on the ropes, that Floyd wouldn't have been able to get away from the barrage of punches that Khan was able to throw, the type of punches that he was able to throw. But at the same time, Floyd was a master counter puncher, so it's not a given that he wouldn't land a shot that might hurt Khan or get him out of there. But I felt as long as the fight was going on, that Khan would have been very highly competitive in that fight, because his speed at that time was phenomenal. And he was able to throw punches from all angles, which you just can't pick up on. And he could punch. He could punch.
Since you don't stay on social media, I don't know if you've seen how they talk of Kovalev now, but he's a 3-time champ in one division. Like he's won the belt 3 times. I think that it's unfair since Canelo moved up to fight him and beat him. He's he's not getting the credit that he deserves, and that is Andre Ward's biggest win. How do you feel about I guess the way that boxing treats its fighters? It's like, again, a guy being a 3-time champion, they'll diminish that and say that, he was less than, and whatever the case may be. They still talk about the alcohol, but it's like, how many times can we say he's an alcoholic? He won the belt 3 times. There's fighters out here that go their whole life and don't win 1 belt, and he didn't win any regulars. It's always been the WBO.
Well, I could say when we fought him, he was in his prime. He has shown no signs of slippage at all. So I don't want that taken away from us. We beat him when he was at his best. The Canelo fight, it was a perfect setup fight. He fought 1 fight over in Russia, and 6 weeks later he's fighting another fight. A guy that size got to come down and weight and everything. He was weight depleted.
It was 10 weeks, Virgil.
10 weeks?
And
Still not enough time.
Canelo did it twice, though.
Still not enough time. Canelo did it twice with who?
He fought Callum Smith for the super middleweight title, turned around 10 weeks later, defended against his mandatory Abney Yildirim, 10 weeks later, turned around.
Abney Yildirim, 1-round fight. Who hadn't fought, what, 2-3 years?
He still had to go through the camp, though.
2 or 3 years, not that strenuous of a camp.
I'm just saying.
Camp.
I'm just saying he did it twice.
Yildirim hadn't fought it. Yildirim got the fight on a 7-week notice.
Hold on, Virg. Are you saying
hold
that?
on. Devin defended his first title defense was on 43-day notice. Now, hindsight, he'll tell you that he regrets doing that because it wasn't a proper camp. But, it can be done.
Not to mention, it's Canelo. On that level, do you train down?
Well, he's moving up in weight, so he doesn't have to worry about a weight loss situation. Whereas Kovalev is going to put on 15, 20 pounds in between those 10 weeks, and now he's got to go right back in camp after a 12-round, 11-round fight and take that weight right back off. And I think it was a weight stipulation, wasn't it?
There was no mention of that.
Wasn't it 172?
Oh
No. It was a full. It was a full light heavy.
So I don't have to worry about making a weight. So I'm gonna be strong. I'm gonna be strong. Whereas he's coming off this fight, he's got to gain weight to train.
Right
now, he's got to take it right back off at his age at 35.
I think that's a tale as old as time in boxing, though. You beat somebody, especially if you outclass somebody, then people want to diminish the guy that you beat. No, maybe he was just a better man that night.
Well, let me ask you this: could Canelo have beat the Kovalev that we fought?
Hell no. I was at both fights ringside. Hell no. Maybe the second time. I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like Canelo makes great adjustments. We saw it in the rematch with Golovkin, but maybe the Kovalev of the second fight, but I don't believe the Kovalev of the first fight.
We got a few minutes. I want to ask you a few trainer questions. Obviously, most recently, Ben Davison had to throw in the towel for Lee Wood versus Mauricio Lara. Did you get to see that?
I saw it.
What was your thoughts? I thought it was a good stoppage.
I also thought it was a good stoppage, being that that was a real first puncher that he fought, and Conlon had put him down pretty good in the fight before that. So you never know what goes on in sparring. I mean, he could have been rocked in sparring, and Ben Davison knew that. Sometimes people don't understand that going sparring, your fighter get wobbled and stunned in sparring, and gets hurt in the fight, you'll stop the fight based on that he got hurt in sparring. So that's just something that's entirely up to Ben Davis's expertise. I felt that Lara had enough time to get another punch through. Wood was very unsteady.
Even in the 12 seconds, knowing it's 12 seconds plus
12
the
seconds
minute.
is a long time. All I got to do is put a jab and a right hand and a hook, and one of those punches is going to land. So in his state, because when he got up, he stayed right where he was. Usually if a fighter's not hurt, like I tell a fighter, if you're not hurt, if you're knocked down, you're not hurt, start walking the referee. Start walking. You don't stand there. Walking, back and forth, walking, make him follow you. Walking, make you walk back to this corner, over here, back. Keep walking while he's counting to let me know that you're okay. But he stood there, which lets me know that he was hurt and he was unsteady. He was swaying. So he wasn't going to be prepared for a barrage of punches to come in there.
And what about my good friend Ken Porter stopping the Terrence Crawford fight, throwing in the towel versus the very durable Sean Porter?
Well, I think Ken knows Sean better than anybody. Sean fought his heart out. He gave everything he had. I think he went down twice in that round, which shows that his resilience was no longer there, because the second knockdown it wasn't that hard. But it was on the money, and he went down. So I think one more knockdown, the fight was going to be over anyway. And I think it was, a minute and 20 seconds left in the round. So they knew that was going to be Sean's last fight. So why let him take additional punishment? He fought a good fight. His dad knows him better than anybody. So I commend his father for not letting him take any further punishment.
And obviously Crawford won that fight. The world would probably stop if they ever announced him in Spence. But how do you see that fight playing out? Both of you guys. Spence, Crawford.
Very interesting fight. I felt that it should have took place by now. So it would be hard for me to take a winner. I think Errol's situation right now is continuously making that weight with the size that he has. So, and listen, Crawford is very physically strong. He came down to my gym with Dre for a week or two. I mean, he's physically strong. Got a wrestling background. He's way stronger than he look, and he's very explosive. I caught the mitts with him. I know he's explosive with either hand. He hit you right, you going. So
He is on a 10-fight knockout streak.
he hit you right, you are going. He punches correctly, right with his knuckles, with snap. He snaps the punches over. And you could just see it in his fight out of nowhere. Pow! You out. So it would have been a very interesting fight with Earl's grind. You can't take him out of the fight. It would have been a fight that would have been a treat to the world, the boxing world.
I mean, that's the type of fight that everybody wants to see, that makes the sport great. To me, that's a pick'em fight. That's a fight that's pretty much guaranteed a rematch. And saying who would come in first place in the first fight, I couldn't even call it. But I'd be tuned in.
Last one, I promise. Tank Ryan does look like it's going to happen April 15th, so we're about 40-something days from that. How's that fight play out for you guys?
I think the early rounds dictate how the fight plays out. I think the longer the fight goes on, it favors Tank. I think Ryan would have to make a move to try to get Tank out of there early, since Tank is a slow starter, but he's very calculating on what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. I believe the fight won't go the distance.
I think that one comes down to Ryan's discipline, because, Tank, I think, is the more seasoned fighter there, and he could pick a shot late in the fight, but he plays roulette because he could easily get behind on the cards against Ryan. And if that happens, then he's depending on his power to bail him out. And so it's an interesting fight. I'd probably lean towards Tank, but if he gets behind on those cards and can't get Ryan out of there, it could be an interesting result.
So, Tony, you think Mendoza will be able to match the output of Fundora?
I don't know if he has to match the output. I think he just has to fight his fight and be able to deal with what Fundora brings to the table. It's a great fight. It's one of those step up to the plate fights for Brian right there, and he'll be ready. And I'm confident in Brian. So I'm excited for him to have this opportunity. This is what he's been waiting for. This is what he's hungry for. And we'll see what he's made of when that bell rings.
Does he work with you since you're out here now, kind of full time? Does he work with you even when there isn't a fight?
Yes.
Oh, great.
But we
great.
pace ourselves. It's it's outside of camp. You work at a different pace than you do inside of camp. You ramp up when you have a date, and that's when you really crank things up and get ready for to peak out at the right time.
Cool. That is it for me. I know you don't do social. I mean, man, I don't know how you gonna feel about this, but obviously in all our time knowing each other, and then the big news about your daughter, I gotta talk to you about that. I mean, no, is that off topic?
That's off topic.
Okay, no, and I get it, but all right. Well, on that note, if you guys don't have any social media,
I'm Mr. Tony Brady on Instagram.
all right.
And that's GTO, Ringwalk Danny, the boxing voice. Make sure to tune in tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern.
Peace. What up, YouTube family? Don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us get to that 1 million subscribers. We're on the road to 1 million. And obviously, we have other great content on our Patreon channel. So since this video is over, head on over to our Patreon and check out all the exclusive content or right here on our YouTube members.